still. You might have noticed that objects are very still. They're just for people to notice the stillness in an object, the object needs to be huge, and then sometimes people say, oh, if you go to Stonehenge, the stone circle at Avebury or Stonehenge, the gigantic stones, which is an object, people go up to the stone and say, oh, I can feel the stillness and the energy. It's so huge, so they say they can feel it. But it's everywhere. The object doesn't need to be huge. And so every object is there. It's isness. It's beingness. And it is wonderful when you feel that everything is actually alive. And that transforms ordinary life experience for you, so that you don't, because people demand something extraordinary for their fulfillment. I want this, would be the great thing if I could only achieve that. Whatever you achieve, the achievement is short, but really your life always comes down to you continuously interact with objects. Now, if you cannot appreciate the objects in your simple, let's say your house is, or your place where you live is simple, you won't really appreciate the world of objects. You make a few $1 million and then have luxury things around you. Okay, then your interaction might be egoic, because you think that is mine, and that's not what we are talking about. If you cannot appreciate a simple table for its beingness, you won't appreciate the luxury table for its beingness. You would appreciate for its luxury value, but that's not what we're talking about. And some people can appreciate things that are works of art. I mentioned somewhere, maybe I wrote it, there's this painting that was done of a very simple chair, an old chair in a corner of a little room, and there's this painting done by the Dutch painter, and this painting of a chair that nobody would have looked at twice, or most people would have thrown out. This artist must have looked at it, because for some reason he painted it. Nobody would have looked at it twice, but he took a canvas and painted this seemingly totally insignificant object, and then there's the painting. Nobody bought it at the time because they didn't appreciate the painting as they didn't appreciate the object. Now the painting has been sold for $30 million, whatever it is. The chair would the chair, you would have to pay somebody to take it. And the painting of the chair is $30 million. So sometimes when an artist comes and looks at something ordinary, then some people can say, oh yes. Or they look at some of the French impressionists of the 19th century, some of which painted totally boring-looking landscapes, very insignificant, not spectacular landscapes. Other painters did that. But many of those painters did totally ordinary, simple landscapes. There was absolutely nothing spectacular about it whatsoever. Nobody would have looked at it twice. But the artist did. And then the artist sat there and looked. And so something was put on canvas that he perceived there, which most people cannot perceive directly. They have to look at the painting. And then they can say, wow. And then they look away, and for the rest of their lives, they still can't see it. They can only see the painting. When it comes through the painting. But do they then go to an ordinary landscape and say, oh? Most of them don't. They're just, so very strange. So what we're doing here is We are becoming aware of the ordinariness, the extraordinary in the ordinary. And that is so important because it brings a richness into your life that doesn't require any change in your life. It's already there. And so, therefore, I suggest to you here, especially, and then perhaps it becomes something that you habitually engage in, to bring that awareness into, not continuously, that's not necessary, but more and more bring that awareness into your interaction with things, and acknowledge and appreciate the beingness of things. And you may sometimes even just sit somewhere and look around just through visual. You take in the totality of the room. Here, for example, wherever the room you're in, you sit and just for a minute or two, you take in the totality. You see every object, there's this. And then you notice there's not only each object in its beingness there, there's also the totality of the room, and there is a space in the room. Now that's totally overlooked usually. But that is a beautiful practice. I recommend it here. And this is good because these are not your habitual surroundings. The room that you're in is an unfamiliar room. So it's easy to practice there. There are no personal associations with your past. And there you can be in the room and just acknowledge each thing. And then the space itself, the totality of the room, which is a coming together of forms in space. The same as in this room here, you have the physical bodies of humans, you have some furniture, chairs, and the lights, and you have the space in the room, and that becomes the totality of the room. And so you can become aware of that. Very unusual for anybody to be aware of space, because there's nothing there. But it's wonderful, because the moment you become aware of space, you have some space inside you, which is stillness. So, nature, humans, and things, the world of things. Three areas of practice, and it's all to do with stillness, which is not a passive state. There's a dynamic quality to stillness. It's not the stillness that says, I can't keep my eyes open anymore. I'm becoming so still. It's not the stillness that goes below thought. It's the stillness that rises above thought. You have two kinds of stillness. First you have thought, which is here. And then for most people, they get tired periodically. And so there comes a short time between getting tired and going to sleep when they become fairly still. Thinking begins to slow down because the energy isn't there anymore. And they feel sleepy. Now what's called sleepy is something very strange, but we are so familiar with it, we don't recognize the strangeness of sleepy. It means something pulls you. It wants you to go there, and it's very sweet. When you pay attention, next time you're really sleepy, you can feel the pull. It says, come here. I'm so sweet. This is so sweet. And of course, you're going there, you're going to you're going to this source, but you lose consciousness. You're being taken to the source to be replenished and to dissolve temporarily in the source of life. And that source has such a pull that even people who get stranded out in the cold and the snow and they're trying to find shelter and they're staggering and then they're sitting down and they know if I close my eyes I will die. If I go to sleep here I will die from hypothermia. And yet the pull, the sweetness that says, come here, come, you must, is so strong that finally, unless somebody stops them, says, keep your eyes open, don't go to sleep, they go. They know they're going to die, but they prefer to go to that sweet place rather than survive. And that is the pull of sleep. And you can sense that. Next time you're tired, try to catch what that feels like. And you can feel this, if you're in bed, and you go, ah. And here, this is not where we are going, by the way. It's not the stillness that is towards unconsciousness. It's the stillness that is alert and dynamically alive. And this is our practice here. But when you do get tired, just pay attention to this. It's quite interesting to feel that. Tiredness, even the word is so familiar and the state is so familiar, nobody really pays much attention to it. Well, you can't pay attention to it very long because then you're gone. So, I don't know if they sell alcoholic beverages here, but I would recommend that you do not indulge in alcoholic beverages here because it could interfere with the rising of presence, especially if after the first glass you cannot say no to the second glass. Once you are more established in presence, a glass of wine doesn't make much difference. Even 2 glasses of wine or 3 wouldn't make really any difference anymore to your state. Not that you'd even want to. I do enjoy a glass of wine with a meal, sometimes 2, never more than that. So just the body doesn't want any more. You can enjoy it. There have been spiritual teachers who got their disciples drunk in order to wanting them to stay aware while these changes were happening in them. And so these are controversial techniques for spiritual transformation. And then you can have sex at the same time and stay conscious with that. So we don't practice these things here. Here we pick up a pencil and look over it. So you're going to go to sleep tonight. Pay attention to that. And before, if possible, I recommend it particularly on retreats, as you lie in bed, if possible, go to sleep consciously rather than in the thinking stage. So I always recommend lying on your back for a while and feel the inner body, use it as an anchor for staying present, and the entire energy field. And go to sleep from there, and so you become still and go into sleep being still. You don't need to think about your life while you're lying there. There's nothing much you can do at that moment. And if you start thinking about your life, it's unlikely that you will come up with this great idea. You might, but probably not. Because the great idea doesn't come through thinking about your life. The great idea comes when you become still and alert and present. Then it's much more likely that some great idea will come that could change your life. But not through thinking. Thinking is a secondary tool, but there needs to be something more powerful that informs thinking, that arises, and that a consciousness, the primordial consciousness that you become one with as you become still. The more stillness, the more creative, the more access you have to the dimension of all creativity. Obviously, that's where it arises. Not thought is always secondary, never creative. It can give form to something, yes, but in itself, thinking is not creative. And if you can never become still, you're not going to have a single creative thought in your head. You will only have the old thoughts going round and round and round. Yeah. So our entire retreat then, with the various dimensions that I explained, are really about becoming still, spacious, present, as you interact with nature, with people, with the world of things, and even as you go to sleep, become still and go to sleep from there, and you wake up in the morning. Some people, even people who are usually burdened by their minds, some people have told me that when they wake up first, there's half a minute or so when they feel very alive and feels very good. They go, the eyes open and they go, oh. Ah. And then the first thought comes in. And then the second thought. Oh, no. And then the burden comes in. It goes. And then when they get out of bed, they're already in it. Just one more day to get through. So here, as you wake up, also stay present just stay in bed for just a few minutes, and then, oh. Here, the good thing is, I don't believe there's television in your room, I hope not. And I'm told the internet downloads are very slow here, which is good too. Because while you're waiting, well, it would be better not to use it, but if you have to, while you're waiting, you can be, instead of waiting, be present. The moment when the download is complete is not going to be better than this moment. Not at all. It's just the download is complete, that's all. No better than this moment whatsoever. Never. So, I wish you well in your practice, if you want to even call it that. And we will meet again in the present moment.